Thank you for tuning in to a very special episode of Threats from Gallifrey. I am your Game Master Barefoot Tour Guide. You can call me Garrett. I'm joined by Savage Tim,
Heyo.
Chris Sniezak of Misdirected Mark and Encoded Designs.
Hey, what's going on?
Hello, and Misdirected Mark himself, head honcho of Queen City Conquest, Mark Napick. Welcome aboard.
Greetings, gamers.
First, a huge shout out to all the Patreon supporters of the show. We just hit another stretch goal, 70 a month. So you guys will be getting a video showing how I make the videos for the games, mixing live action, miniatures, and South Park style animation all together to make something fun for your gamers. And my wife's already warning me I need to come up with a really good $100 stretch goal. So if you want to support the show, patreon.com/Garrett Crowe. So this show is about Queen City Conquest. Whereas I remember it, 20 hours of gaming, and somewhere in there the alarm clock went off, and I looked at my wife, and she said, just go. So that's how I will remember this. So, Mark, how did Queen City Conquest go? I mean, you're the man behind it. You get the big picture. What was it like for you?
It was a blur. I don't remember any of it. Somebody told me I was there. I don't believe them, but apparently we had a great 3 days of gaming. Oh my gosh, 350 plus people all 3 days. Raised over $3,000 for charity. I'm hearing myself talk back to myself. That's weird. Yeah. So overall, great 3 days of gaming. I hear there was a lot of Savage World stuff going on, and I want to hear more about that.
So, Tim, did you get to play in any Savage Worlds games?
Unfortunately, I did not. I took the opportunity to play a couple of games that I don't normally get a chance to play. So I did a little bit of Adventures League. I played some Eldritch Horror, and I checked out a couple of demos of new games that are coming out. The one game, I forget the name of the guys who did it, the one with the space puppies. They had a card game where involved a fleet of interstellar puppies who are trying to return to their home planet. Very cute, very fun little mechanics. I liked it quite a bit. Those guys came up from New Jersey. They are really, really cool. And I got a chance to play a couple games with Kurt Covert. We played a little bit of his new Tower of Madness game that he was previewing at the convention, which was very cool. What else did I get to play? I got to run a bunch of stuff too. We had 11 Savage Worlds games on the schedule, including our Deadlands Rampage. I also got to run a little bit of Lankmar and some ETU, and they went very, very well. I was very happy with how they ran. We got to see some other friends. We got to see other Mike Sprague from Rochester came out and ran a bit of Savage Worlds for us too. He brought his son George, and it was always great to see those guys and got to see a few friendly faces, a couple of people I haven't seen in a while. So it was really good times.
Cool. So from your AL play, any good memories, Tim? Any things that you will be keeping with you for a long time?
Yeah, I think some of the Adventure League stuff I've been pretty impressed with. I think they do a really good job of building the scenarios and making them interesting. I hadn't gotten a chance to sit down and game with Nick Cementelli before, so that was a nice little surprise. He runs a very good game. He runs a good table. It was good times. So, and again, there was another group of really good players. Got to play with my buddy Dan Feltiska, who's always a good time to hang out with. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I would totally do it again.
Cool. And Chris, what did you get to play?
I didn't play anything. I just ran a bunch of games.
Oh, man.
Chris, that's all you ever do.
That's all I ever do.
I remember last year Mark said he wouldn't let me out the door until I had played a game.
That's a lie. I did play a game of Lasers and Feelings with the Flanagan brothers from the Knights of the Night, and Tony Cinta and Phil ran that game from Encoded Designs. It was really quite enjoyable. That game is hilarious. It's a John Harper game. It's on one page. It's quite a good time.
You played another game that I don't know if I can mention the name of it, but it's still in development.
I didn't play Tower of Madness.
No, not that one. The one from a different company.
You mean that that other game that I'm not talking about right now?
That's the one. Yes.
Yeah, that's why I'm not talking about it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you didn't forget it, and it wasn't. Okay, we can't talk about that. Forget that. Erase that.
Who's echoing? I don't think it's me.
I don't know who that is, but
I can hear myself.
Anybody?
it was bothering me too.
Huh. Okay.
It's okay. No big deal. I
Is it
hear
still going? My headset, I think, was a little loose.
Might have been you. Yeah, I think it's gone
Yeah.
now.
It's gone now. Cool. Awesome.
All right.
Fantastic.
So, Mark, did you get to play anything, or were you behind the administration
I,
desk the whole time?
I got to play a few games, actually. I got to play a round of Artemis, which I always have to do every year. We got to blow up some space aliens. That was always fun. I actually sat down and watched Andy Hopp run a game of Lowlife for about 15 minutes. I didn't actually get to play in it, but oh my god, that guy has so much energy. I don't know where it comes from. It's crazy the stuff he does. The puppies from space that Tim mentioned. I wanted to mention them again real quick because he reminded me of something. They had one of the best donations to the charity auction. They gave us a doggy bag.
Aww.
It was great. Doggy bag had a little sampler of the game in it, and so that was great. It was so thematically appropriate for their game. I was very impressed. Other than that, what was the other game I got to play? Oh, I got to play King of Tokyo. There's a tournament at Queen City Conquest this year. I defended my title as the reigning Buffalo champion of King of Tokyo. Unfortunately, I did not succeed in defending my title. I lost by 1 point. So, yeah. Shout out to Brian Kerr, who is now the new reigning champion.
Wow. But you'll try to unseat his throne next time?
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, there's gonna be another tournament probably around the corner at some point. I'm sure. I'm definitely gonna reclaim my title.
Cool. So Tim, let's hear some more about the Lankmar. Mike pulled me over to there and was very unhappy with his character. Was that a Lankmar game? But yeah, he felt very much a lot of pain in that game, I think.
Well, it's his own damn fault. I mean, it says it's right there. It's on the tin. It was in the name of the scenario. It was called the Crimson Barge. And if you think for 1 second that the game called the Crimson Barge is going to have something to do with water, that's your problem. So if you go to look at the pre-gens and you grab the one that has a phobia of water, don't come crying to me. You had plenty of warning, sir. Plenty of warning.
All kinds of fair.
Exactly. So he had a great time out otherwise, and he played really. He and Paul Rehak had a really good time, kind of playing off each other. The scenario involves a group of thieves who are trying to sneak on board a nobleman's or a merchant's pleasure barge in order to steal an expensive statue on behalf of the Thieves Guild of Lankmar, as one does. And so they did a really good job of impersonating a group of entertainers. So they masquerade themselves as being stage magicians, along with an acrobatic cohort to do tricks and tumbles and all that sort of thing to distract people from the actual crowd. And they did a nice job of using that ability to hide their emotions from the rest of the audience, so that the acrobat could sneak over the side of the ship and get into the cabin where the statue was being kept. So they did a really cool job of it. I thought it was a very, very clever idea. They again wound up with a crap ton of bennies by the time things were over. The dice were just really good for them that night. Even Mike was saying that by the end of the game, he had more bennies than he's ever seen in one of my games before. Usually he's like begging for them. So it wound up being a really, really good night. We had it was a bunch of really good play. And then when the ship started to sink, it got a little bit more complicated, but it was good. It was really fun.
And how about, I saw you setting up for Red Necromancer for
Yes.
ETU. How did that go?
For a Sunday afternoon game, I thought it went pretty well. It wound up being kind of a zombie smash sort of thing, which I was sort of okay with. I kind of want to flesh it out a little bit. I'm planning on running it again at Con of the Cobb in October, in just a couple weeks. Oh my God, it's only 3 weeks. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? Because the end
Play
of
more games all the time.
So what's gonna happen? What happened was that the front end wound up being kind of short. And since it was the Sunday afternoon of the game, I didn't want to push it too far, but I think the end of it needs a little bit more fleshing out. But I have a few ideas for that I think I'm gonna incorporate. If things wind up getting ahead of schedule, I know exactly where I'm going to go with it after the fact. So a little more prep has to be done with that one, but the terrain came out really cool, thanks to Carl Kessler from the Google Plus Savage Worlds group. He did a setup for Redneck Rampage or Red Necromancer that I shamelessly stole by setting up a bunch of little trailer park homes.
Appropriated.
And,
We don't steal, we appropriate.
well, when you steal from one person, it's stealing. When you steal from many, it's research.
Oh,
This was stealing.
I'm gonna interrupt you for a second, Tim. So if anybody wants to know how to make cool ass terrain, period, go on to the Savage Worlds group anywhere or just go look up Carl Kiesler. Like he makes the coolest stuff, period. Like I don't know if there's anybody out there doing it better than him.
I
So
would put him and Jordan Peacock in the same vein. They both do fantastic prep work. They do some great props for their games. And they've been a big supporters of the Savage Worlds community for a long time. So mad props to you guys. Definitely keep up the great work, and I'll keep borrowing things from you.
Cool. And Chris, how did Encoded Designs games go?
from all accounts, really well. We ran like 10 or 12 or 11 events, something like that. We were up near the front. It was a really good time. I made the mistake of running games on both Saturday and Sunday morning, which I guess the best compliment I got is I ran a game on Saturday morning, and somebody from that game, actually three of the people from that game came back on Sunday morning to play it. So even though I was not in any state to really be running a game, I ran a game on Sunday morning, and I feel like we might need more events on Sunday morning in general at the QCC, because there were like 9 people that wanted to play in that game, and I couldn't let all 9 people play in that game. So Mark, get on that.
I'm working on that, rookie.
Yeah, that was really the biggest issue. I saw it was we had so many good events that there were people wanting to get in. Like the Paranoia game with Chris, it was like 20 people trying to get into that. There were people always wanting to know on some of my sold-out things, is there another spot? Is there another spot on there? So that is just really a good problem to have.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one of the things I'm trying to
happy.
Yeah, it's one of the things I'm trying to work on too, is that I do want to get more people involved in running games, and I'm kind of hoping that with the Savage Sunday program that we can get more people interested in running stuff, or more comfortable with running stuff in public, and then maybe we can build up our team of game masters a little bit more, expand it out some more.
Very cool.
Yeah, but in general, Encoded showed pretty well. We had a good time. People seemed to like our games. I wouldn't know for sure, because all I got were the people that were like, yeah, your game was fine. Because I always ask after I'm done running the game how it was and what could be done better. But Mark Napik has like sheets and whatnot about who did game well and such. Sentences,
Yeah, Mark. So where's our data? How's that going?
That's actually a work in progress. I can tell you that Tim, you got gold stars for the most part.
Yes, you did.
Yep. Chris, you're not invited back ever again. No, I'm kidding.
That's fair.
No, I know a lot of people have given you guys very high marks, and what I'm hoping to do is have the compiled list all anonymized and everything and sent back to you in the next 2 weeks.
That's cool.
Don't hold me to that, but that's my goal.
Yeah.
I actually had a couple other things that I'm still dealing with. The charity auction for one thing.
Mm.
Yeah. When you get $3,000, it takes a surprisingly large amount of work to actually spend that money.
It's like Brewster's Millions for you.
Yeah, right. So while I'm still, I guess, in self-promotion mode instead of deflecting this, because I'm really bad at talking about myself. I ran 3 games of the Airy Peaks, which is a product that is coming out from Encoded Design sometime early next year, Q1. I ran a session of L Hall, which is a fantasy fate game that is coming out sometime, I believe, late next year or early the year after. And in my L Hall game, it was quite interesting because there's a character in that game that's pregnant. Well, when the game's going on, they had a kid during the game while they were in the dungeon fighting things. So that was fun. It's the first time that's ever happened in one of my games.
Are you taking notes from Sean Merwin? What the
Yeah,
hell?
right. That's where I stole that from. I stole that idea from. I never actually played that adventure, so it worked for me.
For those who don't know, Sean Merwin wrote an adventure where a woman gave birth in the final battle. It was weird.
It was weird. This just kind of happened in the middle because it's one of the characters that was pregnant. It's also the only character that I've ever had in a game, like in a one-shot game that I wrote, that actually has to be female or male. Like you have to, it doesn't make any sense for the man to be pregnant. Because usually I say it doesn't. I don't care if people gender swap. So this is like an interesting thing. I don't care if people gender swap characters usually, but you can't gender swap that character because they're pregnant, and that's part of the game.
Unless it's a really weird game.
Mm-hmm. Some Doctor
I'm pretty
Who
sure
might work.
Doing
They
this
named-
I'm sure we could come up with a game.
They wanted to name the kid Conan.
Conan!
Yeah.
Nice.
Funny story. That was on my short list if our daughter had been a son.
Mm.
My wife wasn't having it. I said, but it's a traditional game. Perfect. She's like, no.
As for me, go ahead.
I like that she's sitting right next to you,
Yeah.
Tim, and she's shaking her head no. That was the best part of that.
Love you, honey.
As for me running at the con, I tried to do an experiment because I was the previous years had done Deadlands Noir and felt okay. It felt rushed compared to how a noir story goes. I wanted to be able to take more time with it and do a slow build onto that kind of thing. I thought that also lent itself well to Cthulhu, so I did 2 8-hour slots that were broken up into 4-hour slots for Octon Cthulhu on Friday and Saturday Deadlands Noir, and got rewarded players who played in both sessions slots by getting to level their character up, giving them 3 advances on that. And a lot of people really seemed to enjoy that and being able to establish a working relationship in the first part so that they were a well-oiled team by the time they got into fighting everything I threw at them by the truckload by the end.
That's really cool, man. I actually did that too. I had a theme for all 3 of the sessions of the Area Peaks that I ran this year. They weren't the same game. That was just one continuous story. So if you played in the first one, then you just can bring the character back to the second one and then the third one. Worked out really well.
Very nice. So, Mark, what was your favorite thing that you saw that was new to Queen City this year?
Probably the best thing that I saw was we gave Pathfinder Society their own room this year. Adding more room just shows that we're continuing to expand, and seeing Pathfinder Society really take root finally in Buffalo was kind of a nice thing to see. That and Dagahir. That was the other big new addition we had this year. Dagahir is I don't know, they're not quite a LARP. They're a live action, definitely.
It's a boffer.
Boffer.
Is what they
Boffer
call
LARP,
it,
yeah. They bring out their big foam weapons and they beat the hell out of each other, and they demoed that for a few hours for us. That was great. The best part of that was at the end, all the adults were in there like, oh god, I've been hitting people for 5 hours or for 2 hours straight. I need a break. So they just gave the kids all the weapons, and the kids just turned it into Hunger Games Light. Also, internet. This is your cat tax, internet. There you go, kitties. Yeah, they turned it into Hunger Games Light once they gave the kids the weapons, and it was just ridiculously awesome. Everyone had so much fun watching the kids go nuts.
Very cool. So the big thing of why I got most of you guys on to talk about the 18-player Deadlands Rampage. 18 players, 3 tables, 3 marshals, and a ton of goodies that were surprisingly delivered to us by Pinnacle. So, guys, just go at it. What was it like for you when you saw it all, everybody there, and when we synced our watches and said go? What was it like for you?
I'll be happy to go first with this. So for me, it was terribly confusing in a lot of ways because these characters, these pre-gens, are well advanced beyond anything that I was ever comfortable with because I'm not really a Savage Worlds guy. So that was fun. So I had to rely on every storytelling trick that I know instead of relying on any kind of mechanical trick, and that was okay because I didn't really have a bunch of Savage Worldy type players at my table except for maybe Ruben Riviera, who's a local Savage. And so that was fun. I mean, the adventure, I really liked. Oh man, I'm gonna sneeze. I guess I'm not. The scenario was solid. I really enjoyed the Lost Sons part of it quite a bit because they're not the North or the South. They're sort of the in-betweens, and they have quite a interesting little storyline. And I feel like the 3 different parts could have been 3 separate adventures all on their own, 3 like 4-hour adventures all on their own. So I would have loved to. I would love to play that out like that instead of having it in that delve format. But that delve format was fine. I just felt like there was a lot more story there than them. That was perfectly
And
fine.
the Lost Sons have frozen Chris up. Oh, there he is.
He's choked up.
Where did I get choked up at?
You said it would be good to run it as a individual session because there was so much more story, and then you kind of froze.
Yeah, so like the whole the 3-hour chunks, the three little separate chunks could have all been their own separate adventures. Like they should all be more like 3 or 4-hour adventures, I think, and I think that would be great. But I thought it was good as it was too. There's just a lot more that I feel that could be done with that. But that's just me.
But that's something that's going to come. I mean, this is my first experience with this was Lord of the Hives, which took about 3 runnings before we had locked script, and then I would get bored and change things anyhow. But so that's really kind of what we're doing. I've never speed ran Savage Worlds. I didn't know what it could take in a time trap in this kind of time thing, and then I didn't even think we have a mixture of experienced savages and people who have never rode a wild die before. So how does that all come into play? And that's something I was taking serious notes about as we were kind of going along in my brain. Tim, how was it for you when we said stick watches?
Very well. We were in kind of the same boat where we had a mix of people who were familiar with the rules, people who weren't. And they picked it up very quickly. Most of them were experienced gamers, so they instantly understood the concept. They instantly understood the kind of characters that were at the table. They bought into the premise. They ran with it. They were really involved in the heroic part of the actions. They were doing crazy stuff like, let's steal the train. I'm like, can they steal the train? I don't know. Sure, let's go with that. Let's see what happens. They stole the train without even thinking about what could possibly be on board, so they had no idea what they were in for. And we had one guy decide that he was going to leap from the top of a train and grab on a passing ornithopter and wrestle with the pilot to throw him overboard. And I'm like, yes, cool, go for it, yeah. And the fact those characters were such high level really helps build that up because legendary characters can do lots and lots of stuff. The downside was that I think some of the characters need some revision. A lot of them had a lot of hindrances, and I don't know why they had so many. And the fact that the one character, Calamity Jane, didn't really have a niche. She didn't really have anything that she was there for. And so the player recognized that, everybody else is kind of better at their thing than she is, and she doesn't have a thing. But that's what I think is one of the classic problems with designing a convention game, is that you shoot for 6 players. 4 characters are pretty easy. You pretty much can come up with 4 concepts solid. 5, not too bad. You can come up with a variant. 6, that 6th person is always hard to figure out what you're going to do with them. And it's one that I've always kind of struggled with, is trying to figure out what that 6th player is going to do. I don't know what to do if you got 7 or 8. I mean, at that point, you're just duplicating things.
So, Chris, for your entire table, the concepts for that, I basically went to work and said, if you were an Old West character in a steampunk setting, what would you do? And I just wrote down everything they said, and those are your pre-gens. The werewolf character was a pre-gen. Mm-hmm. The sleazy Rach was a character from the co-worker said, I want to be a brothel owner. And I said, okay, sure. The tattooed seductress, that was, again, a co-worker said, this is what I am in the Old West. So which I thought was an interesting way of getting pre-gen concepts.
Well, I only had 4 characters at my table, and I thought they were perfectly fine. I only had 4 players at my table, so I only had 4 characters, and I thought they worked out really well. I thought the characters were great.
Yeah, and especially your werewolf character, when everything turned into a Deadland, that character with that fear test was giving people heart attacks left and right.
It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Which was fun. Have you, Tim, run things at that kind of a level of legendary with that many people in a Deadlands setting with that kind of everything thrown at? How far have you taken Deadlands?
I've never done it in Deadlands. My 50 Fathoms game went well into the legendary area. So I've played it a little before, but I've never seen that much in one place. I've actually never run a convention game that big before. So that was a first experience for me, is running that kind of intricate work. I used to do back when I first started running convention games at Rubicon, we used to do team tournaments where they were D&D style tournaments, and every team was given the same scenario, and then depending on what they accomplished within the scenario, they would achieve points. Whoever got the most points would go to the next round, and it was an elimination style round. That was probably the more intricate one that most everyone I've ever done before. But having all of them at the same time, running something that was interconnected, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool. I do think, and we talked a little bit about this on the day, was that there was way more material than we would ever use.
Yes.
I think that's telling for a convention game, as I think that we can cut some of the extraneous material out. A little bit also too is having some more objective measures to rate the individual tables, because you did say my people were awesome, and subjectively say we all had a great time, so we all win. But we did have some prizes to give away. We couldn't give them to everybody, which is sad. We'd love to be able to give them all sorts of prizes because they were all awesome. But at the end of the day, we do have to give away only one or two things to one or two people.
Yeah, so we need to be able to tabulate the how things went down at the end.
Yeah, I think we should have just rolled randomly.
If that's what it comes down to, too. But yeah, but if that's the case of, let's have some more of an objective goal of, like a quick checklist of here's where things are right now, here's what he accomplished this round, and that makes it easier to kind of coordinate.
Score sheet.
Yeah, like a little score sheet about not only just for the end of the prize awards, but also for keeping tabs on what other events can occur.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mark, you've handled epic events at Gen Con and other places with Baldwin and things. What is your experience with the delve concept? What are the key factors to make a successful delve from your experience, and how did that rate to what you walked into?
Let's see. In my experience, the area we come from, we call them battle interactives instead of delves, because they're usually very combat intense, very combat heavy. Not so much story. I mean, there's story, sure, but it's definitely a lot of combat. And then the interactive element is the biggest piece that is also the hardest to get right. You want table A to do something, and you want it to affect table B, C, D, and E as well. And the same going all the other ways as well. That's the hardest part to really balance out and get right, I think. Getting concepts for characters, I let in my area, we've never had to deal with that. We always let players bring their own. So, sorry, Tim, I don't have to deal with your issues. But making it work so that what the tables are doing has a real visible impact on other tables without overcomplicating everything. That's always what I felt to be the hardest part about an interactive event, a multiple table event.
Okay. And I saw you walk in a few times. Did things look like they were flowing, or did it look like train wreck?
Geez. I hate to say this, but it looked like the kind of train wreck that you want to stop and stare at. I want to put that in the most positive light that I can. It was an amazing thing to see. I could see that things were going off the rails, but the players were having so much fun with destroying your plans, I couldn't stop it. I wasn't going to stop it. It was great.
So let's go there. What happened at your tables, Chris and Tim, that busted the module? And in retrospect, do you have strategies for how we can clean that up so the rails are more solid, or do we even need to worry about rails anymore? Because that's really the reason I asked you two guys to run it, is I knew you could take a train through the ocean and make it come out somewhere.
Well, I presented them with the Native American spirit. What was his name?
Sitting Bull?
Sitting Bull. When he's like, we've been betrayed, and it's going to go poorly, and this thing's going to stand up and wipe out everything. And then my players are like, well, that's good because it's going to kill all the white people. I'm like, that's a good point. So what do you want to do? And they're like, we want to help. I'm like, all right, that's not in the module anywhere. I'll make it. So that might be a useful thing to put in there, is because when I read it, the first time I read it, I'm like, if I was them, I would just help. I mean, that was the first thing that occurred to me. It was like, I would just help the Native Americans destroy Washington D.C. Like, why not? Works for me. I mean, that would take care of 90% of the Native Americans that are left in the West's problem.
So, Mark, in a D&D Battle Interactive, if a table told their leader that instead of attacking this fortress over here, that they were going to help the orcs and red wizards do this because this would accomplish their faction's goals better, what would happen?
It has actually happened twice. I believe at Winter Fantasy 3 years ago, this was, I don't know if it was 3 years ago, it was back in the 4th edition days, there was a table of Knoll players, and they decided that they were going to try and screw with all the more civilized races, and they were going to actively try and upset the balance in the Battle Interactive. That was kind of awesome. They didn't get very far. They caused some major havoc, but eventually they got shut down by the other tables who sort of ganged up on them. The more recent example was a table of Drow players. Is it Drow or is it Dro? I don't know how you pronounce that.
We'll go with Drow.
Rhymes with cow.
Yeah, okay.
There's the commonly accepted nomenclature these days.
Okay. The Drow have the Drow table decided to take a more subtle approach. It might have even been a few of the same players that were the Knolls, but anyways,
that makes sense.
Yeah, they decided that they were not going to actively oppose everyone, but they were going to try and subtly subvert some things to go their way, and that has always. That's really the Drow way, so they were vastly applauded for doing things that way instead. They were a lot more well accepted by the community than the Knoll table was.
But did they not accomplish the goals that were given and not get the points that were needed for...
So the DM at the table, once they realized what was going on, went and had a consultation with the leader of the event, and basically he was told to do the best you can with it, make sure the players have a great time, and give them experience and consult back with us for whatever golden loot they get that's part of the module. You're allowed to give that up to. As long as it makes sense. For experience, though, come see us. And I don't know how that was handled afterwards. That was a behind-the-curtain sort of thing that I was not privy to. So I can't really answer that question.
Okay.
I know they got some experience.
Chris, what did I tell you to do?
You asked me what they wanted to do, and I was like, I'll take care of it. And then, or you said go ahead. And I'm like, all right, I'll take care of it. So then I went and took care of it. And then when you asked me later what I did, and I'm like, well, they need to bring a body of import there to sacrifice to make the Rotunda fight for them, because that's what it was. The Rotunda comes to life and fights for the Deadland, or the Native Americans in this case, because it was Raven that was really doing it. So that was then they went off to go snatch somebody from your table, in fact.
That's why they were trying to. That's why the werewolf was trying to grab and pull away Doc Holliday. Okay.
Yes. That is exactly why.
Good story. I like that. And Tim, what happened? You kind of hinted a bit at the table. How did you handle what happened, and where did things go off script, and how did you make it work?
Well, like I said, the thing that surprised me was that they decided to steal the train, which was not something that I anticipated. One of the characters was a weird scientist, so he had a very high repair skill, and so he knew technology, he knew how things were going to work, so it wasn't that hard for him to figure out how to make a train go. I mean, it literally is on rails, so it's not that complicated. So the fact that they decided to do that was I was totally in support of, although it was a nice little surprise. But it did make things a little bit complicated to explain how the next couple scenes worked, because
especially since the train was filled with Nosferatu.
Well, yeah, so that's always a problem. But the next scene it wound up working very well because the next scene they encounter a battlefield where one of the Union generals is besieged by a bunch of rebel troops. So they pulled the train up next to the battlefield and opened the doors. So that made a big difference as far as the scene worked, and we were doing the mass combat rules, and they pulled that off just the end of the last round, and that gave them enough successes that wound up winning them the battle. So the fact they had the train full of Nosferatu and were able to open up in the middle of the battlefield really made a huge, huge difference to the story as it was. We didn't have to change too much though after that point. It was fairly easy to pivot and incorporate that because instead of doing an ornithopter chase, it becomes a train chase, which is even simpler to run because all you do is treat the train as being an unstable platform, and you're done. That's it. That's all you have to worry about. Your train is an unstable platform. Go crazy. You're on, and then the rules fall into place at that point. No additional information is needed, so it's really easy to pick up and run. When they finally got to DC, that's where things got a little bit funky. We wound up running behind schedule, and they didn't actually make it to the last fight themselves.
Yeah.
Which I think is a little disappointing.
Hey, can I interrupt for one quick second?
Sure.
Yeah.
Garrett, just from a presentational point, do all of your listeners know sort of the overview of the story that Tim is describing so that they're not completely lost?
I've done segments on every episode going in talking about the build-up, so I don't think there's any surprises as far as talking about the structure of the plot lines.
Okay, good, because
otherwise
me having not
going, sure.
I was like, okay, there's a train, sure, go for it. Sorry to interrupt.
No
problem. And then when Stone shows up, so that was fun. He is a really, really nasty character, and I had forgotten how unbelievably nasty he really is. I mean, man. In one round, he took down half the group in his first action, and it was just like, it was cool for a minute, and they were like, awesome. The first reaction is, hey, this is really amazing, and then they went, oh, now we're not going to get a chance to play a whole bunch, and you could feel sort of the air go out of them, and I panic, because that's the last thing I want them to do is I want them to feel there's no chance, there's nothing they can do. You want them to still feel engaged, you want them to still feel part of the story. Luckily, one of the players pulled off a really great shot, which probably would have been a little bit easier if he had a little bit more experience. He was one of the new players, and he realized that his abilities let him actually shoot very, very well. And his other abilities prevented him from taking any penalties. So he didn't realize that he was going to hit when he thought he had missed. So it wound up being a big success overall, and that was enough to turn Stone away from the table and give them a breathing chance to join what was going on with the rest of the groups. But again, the problem became we were just short on time. There was just no way for us to keep that many people engaged in a single combat against each other. There was just not enough time to do it. I've seen tables that big before of doing showdown type stuff where it's taken a whole session to do a game of that size and that amount of combat, following all the regular combat rules. So I think that was kind of a downside too, is that was almost too much to do. The battle interactors I've done, the individual tables had individual combats or individual activities that were going on that would inform other events on other tables, but not directly interact with other tables. I think that might be something to kind of more lean towards.
And I also think one of the things is that, in retrospect, I need to establish in there is if you only get to certain points in there, then this is where you start when the clock starts going. You miss some things, you miss chances to get the artifact bullets, you have to deal with some extra things in the next round, but this is where you start. The story fast forwards a little bit and adjusts.
I almost want to say that the artifact bullets are the reward they get for accomplishing a goal. And make sure that that's something that they're going to get if they hit that goal.
Yeah.
And make it something that's part of the natural flow. So like at my table, if they successfully either A, stop the train, or B, steal the train, they find the bullet somehow.
That's perfect.
because they've achieved the goal. The goal of that scene was take care of the train. You took care of the train, you get the reward. And that way, it would have made the last combat a little bit. They would have had a little bit more breathing room that last fight.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's funny because I was handling it a different way. There was the challenge that needed to be overcome to succeed at that part of the scenario, and then there was the extra challenge that would slide in there for them to deal with, and if they overcame that, then they would get the magic bullet. Like in one part, they're in the underground. The whole point of it is to go and free Stone. They're going to free Stone, who's imprisoned underground. And if they free Stone, then they succeed at the encounter. But if they go into the facehugger room and search it, because there's a facehugger room there, then they find the bullet, which they did. And then they went to the one where they're going after the ghouls. What's the name of the ghoul family?
The Whateleys?
I don't think I put the Whateleys into there. Oh, the Grimm's family.
The Grimms. Yeah.
Grimm's cult.
They had a maid who was actually a demon. So, one, they have to find the Bible. So they found the Bible, which has the recipe in there for creating this really not good meat that makes people into, if they banished or got rid of the demon that was there, then they get the bullet. So I was putting it like the extra challenge on top of that as the way that they get the bullet.
Yeah. I think the reason why I was against that idea is because Stone is so nasty.
Stone is nasty.
He's unbelievably bad. I mean, your group didn't even have to fight him.
Nope, because they sent him.
Yes. I mean, when he's facing somebody else, you really got to be careful with him because he's a mean dude. He is death incarnate. He's just a bad dude, man.
So, Mark, the way the Lost Sons go is you've heard on. They're here to inch the screw both sides so badly they destroy one another. And so when they rescue Stone, this is Death Incarnate, they get to choose which table does he show up at the half-hour mark in Act 3. Then they get to choose what mission to take in the second act to go in and mess with another side. So there are 2 missions that Chris had, same maps luckily for most of it, but still got to decide what table and what mission to take to mess with it to make their third act even worse.
And Tim, you were doing the south, right?
I had the north.
I was doing the south. Tim had the north.
That's right. They were running the north. And they chose to screw the north at every opportunity. That was their choice.
Interesting choice. Any idea why they didn't sort of spread the love?
Well, they were in Washington to begin with, and they got shot at right off the bat by somebody because that's one of the things that happens. They're like, "Who shot us?" And like soldiers from the north, like, "We're gonna screw them every chance we get." So that's how that happened.
Nice.
Cool. As Stone, Mark, can only, if I don't know when the last time you played Deadlands is,
Yeah.
Stone can only be killed by the bullets that were he was originally killed with. So those are the goals of everybody, is to get a bullet, and you can only shoot at Stone when he comes at you with those bullets, and you have to hit or they're wasted. And then if you hit him, he basically says, "Damn it, where do you want me to go?" And he'll go over to the table that you sick him to.
Yeah, Stone is bad. I don't ever want to meet him in my game again. He's bad news. He's mean.
He showed up in one of your Deadland games?
Tim?
What? I've never used Stone before. I guarantee you.
Whose game was I at? Where he showed up then? I could have sworn it was yours.
No. You've never met Stone.
Oh, never mind then.
Don't blame me, man. I had nothing to do with it.
Oh no, it was a different game. It was at Running Gag. Jeez, I don't remember who the DM was now, but yeah, Stone showed up and basically kicked everyone's ass, and then said, basically, "You guys aren't worth my time." And he left. I think the GM had just figured out basically what you saw, that he's ridiculous and didn't want to wipe the table with us. So, yeah.
The big nasty part of the fact is he pretty much has every combat edge in the book. He's got every supernatural edge in the book, and you can't spend bennies while in his presence. You're doomed. You're just doomed. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's like
the Benny part. That's ridiculous.
To be fair, he can't spend bennies either, but he doesn't really need to.
He just kills you. Like
You're
so it's
gonna,
like
shooting D12 plus 2, improved hip shooting. You're firing 6 bullets around. Your guns never run out of ammo. It's just gross. It's just gross.
just gross.
I mean, in classic Deadlands, they didn't even bother to stat the guy because they were like,
Yeah.
they just said he just wins. He just wins. He's that mean and nasty.
It's like you don't have to stat Cthulhu.
Right.
He wins.
Exactly. So.
Did you have any players at your table when that were experienced Deadland players that when David, when Stone showed up, he knew what was about to happen, or was this all new people that were like, what the hell just happened?
A lot of them were like, what the hell just happened? Lauren had played my Deadlands game for a little while, but they'd only played until about seasons level or so. We didn't play very long, so he really had no idea what he was in for. So he kind of sort of knew who I was talking about, but didn't realize just how bad it was going to be. So it was kind of frightening. I sort of wish I'd had the foresight of bringing in one of the great pictures of Stone. I should have just held up the book and go, hey, it's this dude on the cover of the Marshall's book. Say, this is the guy. This is what he looks like. Just to give them some idea about kind of how scary looking he is.
Yeah.
But in any case, I had a lot of fun kind of being Stone for a little bit. Because he's just the sort of guy you don't get a chance to play that sort of big, bad, nasty evilness often. And when you do, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So
how did you guys like how the interactivity of this battle? How did you like what your actions did, how it affected everybody else that you saw the story? Because I'm sure you guys read your own things only mostly, but how did you, as you got an idea of what was happening as consequences of your table's actions, how did you dig that? Was that too much? Was it a nice balance? Did it work? How did you feel about that?
Well, from a just a watching point of view, I'm like, well, it's kind of fun now that I know how badly Stone walked over there and destroyed the North Stable. From a design point of view, I think that something like that is problematic because if Stone walks over there and murders everybody, then it feels like they didn't really have a chance. So I mean, if Stone goes first, kills everybody just from a bad draw of the card, and nothing else, and like this is a delve and nobody's really died up to that point. There's never. It's not like a tournament module. I mean, it's sort of like a tournament module, but I don't know if it was actually presented that way to the people who are playing it.
Right.
Then I can feel like I just got too much forward after I've been playing sort of a fast-paced fighting shooter type game for the last 2.5, 3 hours, which can be kind of a drag. But other than that, I think it's kind of neat. So if Stone was less badass and could kill them less quickly right off the bat, or if they got a chance to do something before he did, then maybe it wouldn't be so bad.
One of the players mentioned something that I kind of kicked myself afterwards for not jumping on, and it's just in the heat of the moment I sort of missed the opportunity, is he realized that he could challenge him to a duel.
Yeah.
So, which is another option too, to keep it kind of contain his do damage control, is he shows up on the associated table and challenges one of them to a gunfight. He's going to win. There is no question about it. Stone will probably win that fight. But if he wins the fight and he kills the other opposing character, hand him a copy of Stone and say, okay, great, now you're playing Stone.
Ooh.
Kill somebody else.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not so bad.
That is now in the script.
That way we can contain the nastiness of how big and bad Stone is. The person who gets eliminated isn't completely knocked out and he can still play the game. And if we happen to have multiple Stones running around the tables, why not? It's not the first time.
I'm stealing that idea for my next Battle Interactive. I'm actually trying to write one for a gaming convention coming up.
Oh yeah?
Cool.
Yes. Herding the Tarrasque.
Herding the
That'd be
Tarrasque.
awesome.
Seems legit.
Yep.
That's a trick I've used a lot of Savage Worlds games before because I use the 3x5 cards to print all the stats on. Mm-hmm. So if a player gets eliminated in like the last combat, I go, okay, here, play some bad guys. still sit and play. Run a squad of zombies and have them kill your friends. And sometimes you can get some really good players out of that. That's usually sells a lot of people. That it's easy enough to pick up and just go with that sort of thing. So that way we can contain them a little bit and still. And that was really the reason, Chris, like I said, is that I think the bullet should be a reward for completing a goal, and they should be guaranteed because you kind of need them.
That way, it's not a death sentence. It's did you do your mission?
Mm-hmm.
And other things that happened on Chris's table, like he did their table completed the mission for creating and turning the poor people in the barracks into army of Faminites. Then, like, Faminites showed up at all the other tables in waves at the half-hour mark to add yet another wave of challenge to it, which I think as the fear level is cranked up, and it's just a matter of just dumping in it, because it really goes to, I think, Tim, you taught me the biggest thing about Savage Worlds when I ran my first Deadlands Noir thing, where you said what Savage Worlds does best is dealing with buckets of minions on the table. And that was really my building guideline for this thing right there for that.
Yeah, buckets of dudes, lots of bad guys.
Because you were showing me your bucket of Nosferatu,
Well, yeah. You can never have enough.
I can never have enough vampires in a train.
I ran Night Train at one point, so I needed the figures for it. So I was like, well, I might as well invest in some of these. I'll use them again someday. So.
Gentlemen, I apologize, but I have to go because I have to go do another podcast.
Okay. I'm just going to wrap it up. So thank you, Chris, again for helping out with this. And it was a lot of fun to run with it. And I will refine things greatly by next year. It'll probably be a
sounds
whole new
fantastic.
module.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you for letting me be here to talk a little bit about this, and I'll talk to you guys all later.
Thank you.
Later, Chris.
And Tim, your final thoughts on Deadlands Rampage and Queen City Conquest 2015?
I can't wait for 2016. I think we all had a great time. I know my family had a real blast. My wife and my daughter, they all had a lot of fun. And that's just it. See, she says. So we will definitely be back next year. Hopefully we won't be sick again like we were this year. We all got head colds the week before, so we were kind of like, still sort of fighting off the last vestige of it. So by Sunday I was kind of.
I think my wife was patient zero for Concrud this year.
There was something going around. A lot of people I work with got sick, so it's not that unusual. I would definitely do a Rampage again. I think maybe next time we should talk about maybe doing some other setting stuff. I have a few ideas. So but, we'll talk.
We will talk. So I assume you like the Savage Worlds Delve concept, is what you're saying.
I did. I thought it worked very well. It was a lot of fun to do. I think it worked very well in content. I think there's those places for improvement. Like I said, it's a big project to take on, and you did it. I mean, kudos to you for doing a really bang up job in such a short period of time. And I think there's stuff that we can improve on that just make it a little bit better.
Absolutely.
A little bit extra layer of polish and shoring up a couple of other spots. But otherwise, I think that the idea was good, the concept was good, the play was good. I think it worked really well.
And the Pinnacle was so kind to give gift cards to all the players, and I asked for do you have a Deadlands Benny that I could give one to each player? And next thing I know, I get this in my inbox. So I'm like, I think you sent this to the wrong person.
Oh, nice.
And Mark, your final thoughts on Rampage, the Battle Interactives, and Queen City 2015?
I like the term Rampage rather than Delve, because Delve means something different to me. I was ecstatic to see an interactive style event come up on Queen City Conquest, because it's something that we have sadly missed for the last 2 years. So I'm so glad to see it back, and I want it back again next year. And hopefully we can do. I'd like to do more than one. One Savage Worlds, maybe one with D&D again, maybe some others. We'll see what happens.
I'd love to. Love it. So thank you guys.
Thanks for bringing it back.
Yeah. And thank you guys so much. Thank you, Tim, for helping run it. Thank you, Mark, for hosting, again, such a wonderful convention that we all love to go to. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight, to listening to us talk about Queen City Conquest on Threats from Gallifrey. You guys have a wonderful evening.
Have a good night.
Okay.